Welcome back to Naturally Better. I'm Dr. Jeremy. This is episode 3 of a radio series that I'm glad to say is getting almost complete positive feedback with the occasional arsehole. Of course, I probably should call them intellectual arseholes, but their comments are really not worthy of repeating on this show. And it is in my extreme pleasure to welcome back, on demand, I must say. People have written to me asking for her back, but the wonderful Valerie Warwick. I always introduce her as the ex-Oncology Nurse whistleblower, and known to her ex-colleagues as Rogue Nurse, but really she's a wellness coach of extreme talent, and that talent comes from extreme experience of being on one side of the fence of medicine, seeing it, waking up and coming out on the other side, and she's a little bit like an ex-smoker who's woken up and that you don't tell anyone that you smoke when you're talking to Valerie now. She's absolutely my latest hero for her courage not only to come out of oncology, which was presumably a secure career, but after seeing what's really going on in this, what I sadly have to say is barbaric, draconian cut, burn, and poison methodologies, that make huge money around the world, destroying people's health. But not only has she got the courage within that system to wake up and come out, but even the greater courage, which is why I admire her so, to come forward publicly and start sharing this. And if you were lucky enough to join us on episode 2, we discussed what modern oncology really was and what's going on, and we promised we'd be back with some of the solutions. Frankly, Valerie and I could probably talk for a year, but we're going to give it a good go in the next hour, even though she's a wounded soldier with, I've just been shown, a broken arm, but that's not stopping her. Valerie Warwick, thank you so much for coming back to the show, and welcome.
Well, thanks for having me back. It's great to be here with you.
Okay. So I just wanted to remind the listeners that, and if they haven't seen the last show, pause now if you're watching this later and go back onto the CNN YouTube site or on the website and look for the title, Cancer, What the Doctors Don't Tell You. Because we explored, very importantly, this is the first stage of awareness. For those who already know this, we're preaching to the choir, but as you well know, Valerie, still when people get diagnosed, and by the way, as my good friend Clive de Carl pointed out to me, the word diagnosis means die to, ag, not, gnosis, no. So diagnosis literally means two people not knowing, and that's usually the doctor and the patient. So it's two people not knowing what the hell's going on, which is how they get you into these barbaric health-destructing programs. They call them that and be polite. But what we explored was most people, when they're diagnosed, they don't know anything else, and they are bombarded and pressurized from family. I've got some new clients now, the pressure on the family, all familiar with Valerie, into a well-oiled, fast-track, really marketing machine, straight into surgery, chemo, radiation, or combinations of that. And in that show, if you haven't watched it, go watch it, because you'll learn really what we've been saying for a long time, but directly from someone of first-hand experience. And one of the things when I first heard Valerie that impressed on me the most, with a jaw-dropping kind of what, was when she told or shared the story, just one story, of a chap who was suffering terribly in the oncology ward. I think his name was Fred, but I may have his name wrong. But he was clearly suffering from scurvy, which was a vitamin C deficiency. And I think this was one of the defining moments in Valerie's really awakening of how can this be. And the dermatologist came along and confirmed to Valerie that indeed this was vitamin C. And the doctor was reluctant to give vitamin C. And Valerie managed to get only a small amount, and this chap started to improve. So this show, and I want to let Valerie talk now, is now we're out, now you're out of oncology and you're becoming a more, like all of us, a more and more experienced wellness coach, because we treat health, we rebuild health. We don't treat disease. We help people to regain their health. Can you begin where you are now, how you would approach someone, particularly before they've ever gone down the road of any kind of modern oncology treatment. How would you address that from day one, and what would you need to know to start putting together something?
Well, my first approach is to talk to the person, find out why they think they have this issue called cancer, get a little history or a lot of history. And I know, Jeremy, you're very, very good at going back and tracing back, because really the cause is a cure. So you trace back with the client to find out what they think might have caused this situation. A lot of times they've suffered an emotional stress prior to that, which has lowered their immune system. They have sleep disturbances. They have long-term chronic infections. So these are some of the things that they need to look at. Also, I like to encourage them to get some lab testing that will maybe bring up, bring to light some issues they have, such as heavy metals. They may have worked in an environment that was completely toxic. So they have heavy metals, they've been exposed to pesticides, things like that. And so there's lab testing that can show you that. There's also lab testing that will tell you a lot about your cancer cells. They take a couple ounces of blood, they look at it under the microscope and in petri dishes. They test it against natural substances and will tell you what is effective in treating your cancer cells. They can detect circulating tumor cells way before any kind of diagnostic PET scan or CAT scan, way before those machines can detect it. I hear people all the time tell me, well, they finished chemo, they have no more cancer. Well, you really don't know that until you take a look and see if they have circulating cancer stem cells. And those can be tested in micro quantities much sooner, way before you ever see another tumor or have it show up in another organ, which it often does.
And these tests that you refer to, I'm assuming, because I don't know, that these aren't standardly, routinely carried out by an oncologist. Would that be correct?
That is correct. The oncologists, most of them don't even know it exists, I don't think. They're not aware of it.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me, because one of the things that we are becoming ever acutely aware of is, although we know now the doctors, oncologists are listening to shows like ours and others, and they're secretly on the internet, la-di-da, as you have elaborated on the previous show, they can't really come out of this very confined box they're in, even if their heart and their soul and their conscience wants to, because they'll be out. They'll lose their very high-paid job and they'll be out. So if someone came to you, and thank you for mentioning my case history, because for me, that's how I was taught by the great Barbara Wren, that it is so critical. Because when we get on Facebook, and I'm on several forums, I'm very impressed by the level of awareness that the general public is now getting of see, I don't like the word alternative medicine, because it was put there by medicine. It really should be called original medicine, if anything, or common sense medicine, or real medicine, or true medicine. But anyway, I'm very impressed by the level of people sharing, and they've got this hydration thing, they've got this alkalizing, they've got the core things. And so, but they're still being educated this way. So it's like, well, what do I take and how much, and do this and do that? And that has its place, but not without understanding. So we'll come back to your test in a minute, because I want to hear sort of how much and how easy it is to get and la-di-da. Because the first job that I do is to try and understand how their story from well, not so much healthy babies now, but assuming a healthy baby, how they went along until this point of this very serious disease. And all the time, it's a beautiful experience from my point of view, because we'll be able to clearly see where the body started to get to its toxic loading tipping point, and it started to try and get rid of excess toxicity, and that could be skin problems. So I'll tell you a little story in a minute, but it could be skin problems, or lots of sore throats, or sinus problems, or inflammation and pains, or upset tummies, or whatever, but quite nebulous, not very seriously seen things. And they go to their doctors, who then who are trained just to give them some allopathic toxic drugs that are very effective at stopping symptoms. And so people go, I feel better. You know, I'm just started with a lovely young Trinidadian woman, for example, who has terrible skin on her face. 2 weeks ago, it's already dramatically improved, who spent tens of thousands of dollars on dermatologists, chemical pills, this cream, that cream, you name it, the lot, right? And as I was able to show in an hour, that basically, because of her job and everything she's doing, she built, and lifestyle, because she's so busy, she started to eat rubbish. Her toxic picture built up. Plus, they do a lot with their hair, and so the chemicals go into there, because it's all here. And her body, her skin was her largest organ of excretion. And so what she sees is terrible. And of course it is terrible. She's a woman. She has to go to work. We show our face. So from that perspective, it's terrible. But from a realistic, honest position, her skin, being the largest organ of excretion, has continually been trying to help her by getting over this excessive toxicity that she was no longer able to get through her normal routes of elimination. But with her educated, we say educated to be polite, but we've all been programmed stupid. With her level of education, she'd gone to dermatologists, which is what you've been told to go to. And they've just done ever suppressive treatments, all the way up to, you know, which makes my skin crawl, forgive the pun, chemical peels. You know, so literally, if someone came and said, look, I'll put some hydrochloric acid or some bleach on your face and we'll see how you, they'd look at me and go, what? You know, and I'd say, don't worry, I'm going to charge you a lot of money for it. Oh, that's okay, then it's got to be good, right? But basically, a chemical peel is you go into a nice clinic and pay a lot of money, and they burn the skin off your face. And of course, you know, this young skin that should never be at the front is there, and you go, oh, thank God that. And then it gets worse, and it's a vicious circle. Well, in 2 weeks, her skin got almost completely better until she went and had, she fell off the wagon for 1 day. She's on a 12-week protocol, and went for a special K protein shake. And I said, well, you know what the K stands for? She said, no. I said, crap. She said, you don't spell crap like that. I said, you do when I'm spelling it. But anyway, so she had a special K. And by the way, listeners, what many people may not know is Kellogg's, which is special K, used to be Dr. Kellogg, who was a brilliant naturopath, who had sanatoriums in the day when a sanatorium was a place, not mental health, but you'd go and you'd cleanse and you'd be in nature. And people came from all over the States, all over the world to get better with Dr. Kellogg. Well, if Dr. Kellogg knew what Kellogg's have done to his product with his name, he'd get out his grave and, well, let's be polite, he wouldn't be a happy chap. Let's put it that way, yeah? But anyway, why I bring this in with the case history, I've got this woman here, right? And if those dermatologists had succeeded and her skin problem had gone away, it would have gone away because they would have managed to successfully suppress it so much that the body now hasn't got the energy to bring it out this route, and it would go deeper. And so this girl could easily, in 5 years, maybe sooner, maybe longer, move into cancer or something like that, and that's why the case history is so relevant. Now, if I take that to another case history of an older woman, allegedly terminal breast cancer, that's doing tremendously well, all her pain started to disappear the moment her skin started to erupt with a massive rash and oozing rash. And initially she was like, oh my God, this is great. You know, Natalie thinks I'm a sadist because as soon as you start oozing gunk out of every orifice and suffering, I'm smiling, and because it's great, it's coming out, and her pain disappeared. And it was only 2 weeks in, and the rash is nearly gone now, and she's feeling better than she's ever felt, that she said, you know what? I had this rash 15 years ago and I'd forgotten. And I went to a doctor and he gave me this black stuff and I lathered it all on me and it went away, you know. And I said, well, there's a very good chance that that was, you know, one of the final steps of pushing you, because the Herring's law of cure is it goes deeper. If you suppress it, it goes deeper and deeper until it's from superficial things like skin, sore throats, to life-threatening diseases. So the case history is critical to dictate on the treatment. So when a client comes to you, and that's what I do, I don't do these tests, I want to do these tests. Can you tell us how they would go about getting this information and how it helps them, or it helps you to help them to see what they need to see to start to refocus and that they're toxic and how we're going to help them get better? Could you help us with that?
Well, sure. Let's take heavy metal toxicity. Well, if that's the root cause of why you're so ill, you know, you have, and you're unaware that you have all these heavy metals, you could be spending thousands of dollars doing all these fancy treatments, IV infusions, vitamin C, but at the root cause, if it's heavy metals and you still have those metals wreaking havoc in your body, blocking processes in your body, you know, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You have to get rid of the heavy metals. You have to go back. The cause is the cure. You have to go back and kind of peel back the layers of the onion to really get to the root of the problem. And that's really the difference in approach with allopathic medicine and more, you know, traditional or true therapies, is that you go to the root of the problem and then you build the body up that way, removing the obstacles and then allowing the body to regenerate and to heal itself. So that's just one example of having toxic heavy metals. And if you've been a cigarette smoker in the past, I guarantee you're full of toxins and heavy metals. So that's just one, you know, just one example.
Can I elaborate on that smoking? It's a very relevant point, because still smokers think lungs. They've been programmed to think lung cancer. I haven't got lung cancer. So how did that affect my prostate? Or how is it that I've got bone? Or how is it I got colon? Well, it gets in the blood. And if it gets in the blood, it gets everywhere. And the bones particularly are a beautiful place from a body's point of view when it can't excrete it. And it's that toxic. I think it's several hundred chemicals before you light a cigarette. I think it's 4,000 when you've lit the cigarette, including arsenic and cadmium and other things, and asbestos and so on. And people just still don't understand that if you've smoked 20 years, because often they say, oh, well, I quit 5 years ago, as if that's kind of, yes, well done. Excuse me. I do a quick calculation, always, of how many cigarettes they've smoked. And it usually works out something like 350,000 cigarettes, or closer to 500,000. And they kind of go, because they go, oh, 20 a day, you know, 500,000 cigarettes. And then I said, now, that crap did not get out your body. It did not. Your body's so amazing, it stored it. And you need to know it's probably in your bones, it's in your tissues. And I wanted to just interject you there, because you rightfully said they're going to be full of it. And that may be coming out for years, as a matter of fact. Would you agree?
Oh, yes. And that's why when people start detoxing, you know, they often get really sick before they get better. And so that's why you really need someone to help you and guide you along. Because once you start excreting all that stuff and getting sick, you know, unless you have someone to really support you and guide you through that, it can be quite dramatic. Yeah, really, especially when you see like boils on people's skin start coming out. You know, it's pretty remarkable.
Well, I'll share a story of an extreme and how it can go the wrong way, because you're bang on the money. And this is why this information is so important because a lot of listeners are still used to going, yeah, but how much vitamin C and how much this, and we'll get there maybe. But I had, you're absolutely right. Detoxing is a long process, as a matter of fact, once you've got to a level of toxicity of these serious diseases, even though we can usually massively improve people's health in 12 weeks, in my experience, right? But we had a woman come to see us about last year or something, and she had a breast tumor about the size of a tennis ball. Mm-hmm. And once we did, and the whole family came, which was good, and they were very supportive. The father sat there looking at me like maybe I was something that, illegal or something. But anyway, the rest of the family were absolutely, well, you know what I'm talking about. They look at you trying to see whether you're whatever. But anyway, the rest of the family were great. And once we'd done the case history, this woman had been a cleaner, I believe, but also she'd been using underarm roll-on deodorant, which was the second ingredient was aluminium, for 20 years. And this breast, and I said, look, where do you think it goes? It goes straight in here and into here. I mean, of course, there was other things, dental, but this was the real key one. And it was like solid, it was rock solid. And I said to her, look, start doing this, the protocol, and this is what I believe is causing it, and you're not sick, you're toxic, and the whole sort of shebang. And they got it. They all got it. And they went away, and they started doing it. And I had a feeling with her. I said, look, this may start shifting very early on. And one of the things, in my experience, that tumors that are visible can do is they can open up. They can open up a fissure and start to exude gunk, which is so rotten that you can vomit just at the smell of it. And within 1 week, so I warned them and I prepared them. 1 week, it opened up and started to exude the foulest, and of course some blood with it, but the foulest gunk you could possibly, I mean, if anyone's ever come across rotten meat, and you've smelt it, you know what I'm talking about. It literally makes you gag. And the tumor went down 30 to 40% in 1 week. Wow. But the family panicked. And I said, keep it clean, colloidal silver. She felt fine. No, she didn't. They panicked. And so they rushed her into hospital after 2 days or whatever it was. I forget the exact times. Even though it's shrunk by 30, 40%, right? Mm-hmm. And they rushed her into hospital, and you can guess what they did. They treated her, antibiotics, started to try and close it up. They then gave her chemo, and she died 3 weeks later.
Yeah. Well, that's
I can't say for sure, of course, who can, but with everything I understand that the body must cleanse. And sometimes it can be, I've seen things come out of people's heads that you wouldn't believe. But it's just amazing how you can be alive of some of the stuff. But if they had gone through that, kept it clean with colloidal silver, sunlight, and basic stuff that naturopathically we teach, and she had remained well, and she was well. She was feeling fine. She just panicked. I'm pretty confident that would have either closed up or continued to just, until it usually becomes clear, and we would have had a well woman today. But the programming, the fear, and so what you're saying is very relevant, because if we're going to help people at this level, and if you're listening, we say it all the time, people, you're full of shit and it's going to come out. When it comes out, it can be very, very traumatic. You need help. You need guidance. You agree with all of that, right, Valerie? Oh, yes.
And see what they did. They ran to, allopathic medicine, and they gave her chemotherapy. She was already toxic. So we really have to start using our common sense and thinking, okay, I'm sick because I'm toxic, and more toxins are not going to make me well. We need to reboot the immune system. We need to support the immune system, get rid of the toxins, and then you can really get well. So we really have to start thinking, I don't want suppressive chemical, it's not really medicine, suppressive chemicals to suppress my immune system once more. I want to, detox and get rid of these chemicals, get rid of the toxins so that my body can restore its health.
Absolutely. The point of our shows and the shows on expanding you with India and the owner's human manual is to communicate. It's cleanse and heal. cleanse, but it's always cleanse first. And once you understand how the moons work, and I'm sure there's some doctors listening now, they're going, well, he was interesting till he mentioned the moons. He's right, but, you know, get moon time. I haven't got the book here, but the Bayesians here, the older Bayesians, and most cultures that are older know that crops were completely different if you planted at the right time with the moon and harvested at the right time. But everybody go out and buy Moon Time. It's just one of the best books on the planet. And it shows you how to practice the art of medicine. And as a rule of thumb, when the moons fall getting smaller to a new moon, which is waning, the body is cleansing. It's more cleansing. And from a new moon up to a full moon, with the full moon being the strongest, it's able to take things into the cell. And that includes toxicity. And this is why people out there who do drugs socially will have full moon parties. And all they know is that they get higher. Well, now you know why, because more's going in. But if you're using true medicine, which is normally herbs and alkalizing and nutrients, you'll get more in. So with the moon phases, you can be cleansing, healing, cleansing, healing. And when people go through 12 weeks of this, they get it because they feel it. Now, you mentioned absolutely the cleansing is important, but at this point, the immune system is usually either destroyed or very, very low. If they've been to modern medicine, it's normally destroyed. Can you talk to us, because I know you're familiar with these things, about immunotherapy and the history of that for us, right?
Oh, yeah. So the immunotherapy has been around for, well, probably a lot longer than I'm even aware of course. You know, it was probably the original, knowledge. But from what I know, I go back to Coley's toxin in 1893, I think it was. Dr. Coley, who practiced in New York, one of his sarcoma patients got a really high fever, and it cured his sarcoma. His sarcoma went away after he got the high fever. And so that got Dr. Coley thinking about the immune system. And so he somehow denatured that similar infection, and then started to give that to other sarcoma patients, and they got better. And so that's how Coley's toxin came about. And then after Coley, and this is my limited knowledge, I know Dr. Joseph Issels, during the early part of this 19th century or the 20th century, started doing immune therapy. So he started immune therapy. He was the father of integrative medicine, and he opened a clinic, a hospital. He had the first hospital in Germany that used integrative oncology and immune therapy. And I do know that he was ridiculed by the Oncology Society in Germany. They did not like him, but he was having great results, and his patients got better. They actually even threw him in jail, and I had the pleasure of meeting his wife and having tea with her. She's lovely. And she has a lot of stories, very interesting, about how they tried to really kill him by sending him to the front lines and putting him in jail. So he had the first hospital. But that's the history of immune therapy, goes way back. And so I just watched a documentary last night called Vice, where they're all excited about a new immune therapy that they have at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and also in Texas at MD Anderson. They're doing some immune therapies with viruses. And so then they create a fever with these viruses, which can make you very sick. And these people are getting cured of leukemia. Actually, they are getting better, and it is eliminating their leukemia, so they're getting good results. But this has been around for a long time, but I'm sure they're going to charge an absolute fortune. This is very costly. I think can be done in a much simpler way.
Oh, I'm absolutely know it can. I mean,
Yeah.
the basis of my book that I'm writing, which, I'm going to call You're Not Sick, You're Toxic, TOX-SICK, although someone just pointed out you can't translate that in any other language. It doesn't work on the wordplay, so maybe we'll have a subtext. But anyway, my whole goal, if I achieve it, is to create this philosophical understanding based on the great naturopathic work and original healers and stuff of what sickness really is. So for example, when you're taking drugs, it's not side effects, it's the body trying to detoxify it. It's not side effects, that's misleading you, and so on and so forth. And when you get sick, it's the body trying to remedy it and la-di-da-di-da. But and I know, like, for example, this here, it's a great book by Dr. Jerry Tennant called Healing is Voltage, right? And that just really scientifically, if you like, and very doctory, doctors like to be doctors, I find. Very really supports this wonderful book, Earthing, which is my, absolute love. I love this book. And it's basically that when the cells become sick, let's call it sick, their potential, their charge at the cell membrane has dropped. Right. And if it's dropped, they can't hold on to electrons, which power it, if you like. And so it just hasn't got the energy. And so Dr. Jerry Tennant has worked this out, and he's worked out that there needs to be a certain cell potential of minus 25 and up millivolts for the cell to function in order to cleanse and, to heal. And that particularly cancer, which totally links in with the pH, is right down here. So you haven't got a chance, right? So, of course, he sells a very expensive machine that probably took some 6-year-old Chinese boy in a sweatshop somewhere, 10 minutes and $10 to make, but it's $5,000. Jerry Tennant, do the right thing, bring the price down, right? And, you put it on to, you're rich enough, Jerry. Anyway, come on. Put it on meridian points and what have you, right? Yeah, and a lot like the Russian Scanner, or commonly known as the pain genie in Europe, it can sense the potential and it sticks. You stimulate electricity into it, and the cell membrane changes. Or you can get earthing pads, cost you $30, soon to be on our website. Don't buy it from earthing.com. And you can actually earth it on yourself and get the electrons, which are absolutely free. I can fill Tesla in the room, from the earth straight into you for the same way. Yes, the scanner and all these things have their place. They really do. But, you can do it for free. My goal is to write a book that anyone on the planet can do it without, relatively little resources. But sketching back to what you were saying, tell me why those people got put in jail. Did they kill people? Did they do malpractice? Did they break any laws? Why did they go in jail? Because some people listening have no idea why you're throwing these people, if they're curing cancer, in jail.
Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know the details of the story, so I probably wouldn't be fair to expound. But I do know that they sent him to the front lines because he wouldn't stop practicing the way he wanted to practice, and that was to build the immune system and do the immune therapy. Yeah, so he was having a different approach. He wasn't using chemicals. He wasn't having that top-down approach. He was supporting the immune system and approaching it from that way, and they did not like it at all.
So let me get this clear, because I know others and modern day, and I'm going to bring it in a little later on. His basic approach was he'd recognized the immune system was now compromised or even non-functioning. And his approach, right, I must say rightfully so, was to build and support the immune system. That's the premise of these immunotherapies. Is that correct?
Right. I know he probably, I know his approach was taking, is similar to a chole, and using the patient's own blood and causing it to recognize maybe the cancer cells and re-stimulating the immune system and injecting it back in. I think that was his approach that he used then. They still have a clinic today.
Right. And they've been very successful relatively, have they not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Right.
very good. Yeah.
And knowing some of the immunotherapies, which is also why this program is to get the philosophy, so you don't go here or you don't go there, you get the whole understanding of why. But most of the immune therapies are significantly helpful, are they not, in your experience?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's definitely the way. It's one of the arms to use to get the body to start working again, because the immune system really is, it's blocked or suppressed. The immune system isn't recognizing the cancer cells. So you have to take away the obstruction and then reboot the immune system using fever therapy, which has been around for a long, long time, or infusing the body with macrophages or some immune component to reboot the immune system, because it has to be done in order for the body to get well. They're using Provenge now for people who have failed chemotherapy in prostate cancer. So they're starting to use immune therapies, but they're way behind the 8 ball. They're way, way behind. The only reason they're doing it now is they found a way to make money on it. So it's really sad. It's really frustrating to me to see that they're taking credit for immune therapies that have been around for hundreds of years, and they've suppressed it and they've put it down and they call the doctors crazy. But now that they're doing it, now that they're able to make money on it, they're very excited about it.
Well, we want you, that great movie, which I can't remember the name of it now, is it Henry Stern? 70s movie where he was a broadcaster. I want to call it The Corporation, but I can't remember. And he starts to have epiphanies of truth, and he's a broadcaster, and first you got to get mad. Well, right. I'm glad you're getting mad, because they're killing people. And since we're talking about immunotherapy as a sort of isolated thing, but from the point of view that anyone who's chronically unwell needs their immune system supported and boosted and rebuilt,
right.
Is it not true that chemotherapy is the polar opposite?
Yeah.
Of that?
Completely opposite. They're recognizing how awful their approach is. They should be embarrassed, poisoning the body, thinking that that's going to heal. Oh my gosh, that's like, oh my gosh, it's medieval. It's really, it's on the same level as, it's even below bloodletting. It's beyond that. When you really start to open your eyes and really say, can chemicals really heal me? And poisoning my body is going to bring me health. Wow. When your eyes are really open to it and you really realize how upside down it is, it's astonishing.
That's why you're so important in this, because for example, I had someone yesterday, and I really don't know whether we're going to be able to help them. They're in Europe, and this woman, who's a young mother of 2, and in fact, as Charlotte Gerson has pointed out, very often their cancer will come back, or they get cancer after the 2nd pregnancy, because they're so minerally deficient.
Mm-hmm.
This is why this is one of our best sellers, fulvic minerals.
Yes, I have some too, right here. Yes,
right. Because it's so good. It's so good. But as Charlotte Gerson of the granddaughter of Max Gerson, these mothers are so deficient already in minerals and other things, but particularly minerals, and they grow a baby, and nature gives it to the baby, and the baby comes out, and the baby's fine, and the mother, and this happened to this one, went back into a 2nd cancer. Now, as we were telling her, and she's really, I don't know how long she's got. We've got a very, very, very small window to have any chance. But why I bring her up is because she knew quite a lot of what we're talking about. But her own words were, the doctors bullied me into chemo, and my husband was very scared. Understandably, I'm not having a pop at her husband. He was petrified. And so the pressure is, and you've seen this over and over again, into chemotherapy, And they did surgery, and they said they were just going to take this out, and they ended up taking a load more out, including 20 lymph nodes. This was the first one. And she came out, and she was furious because they lied, you know, which is, from my understanding, surgeons frequently take more, a bit like hairdressers, but more serious. They always cut more, right? But the chemo nearly destroyed her there and then. She said, I survived the treatment. The treatment didn't get me back. I survived it. Then she got on to the, you know, cleanse, alkaline. She pretty much did Gerson. Because she's over in Germany, she knew Gerson and stuff. So she got so better. Then this child came along and came back. And this time, again, she got, you know, pressurized. And the thing is, even though she knew it nearly killed her, the pressure to fall into these draconian, barbaric, and I actually believe evil when you start looking at the full structure of how it's set up, but this cut, burn, and poison. I don't know what else to call it. I'm sorry if it upsets people, and I'm sorry if someone out there that you love survived because of cut, burn, and poison, but I maintain they survived in spite of the so-called treatment and because of other factors like maybe their personality and whatever it is, but there's other factors. But it's cut, burn, and poison. This woman had more chemo, and now it's everywhere, right? And it's just destroyed. You know, she's just destroyed and distraught, and it's terrible. And we need people like you, Valerie, to come out and share this, because we, as of yet, we don't know how many it will stop from at least poisoning themselves and destroying their immune system. And the more, and we know these things go viral, we know more and more are listening, the more that understand that you're not sick, you're toxic. And like she had root canals, almost always root canals. And she said it troubled her for years, and then she found out she had it pulled. But when I asked her, case history, was it pulled and they checked the periodontal ligament, and did they then ozonate the cavity? No, it's just a normal dentist, they just pulled it. So probably the infection is still in the jaw, microinfection. It's probably still got the periodontal ligament. It's probably still oozing pathogenic bacteria. You know, and you know, did they get all the mercury out? Because even though she's had them replaced, and people, mercury is the second most toxic substance occurring on the planet. There is zero safe level in the human body. The American Dental Association make the incredible protectionary statement that it is the most toxic substance, and there's zero safe level in the body. But once you put it in your mouth, it's safe.
Yeah.
Right? No, it's not. Metals expand and contract with heat. It moves. It comes out. These are the cause. And so as Valerie begun the show, it's critical that before you start any therapy or work with anyone, that you've established, is this right? You know, are you living in an apartment building with cell phone towers opposite you or above you, or surrounded by smart TVs? Are you in a toxic relationship? And you know, Valerie, as I do, you know, very often people are in very stressful, it could be work. In fact, can you talk about that? You know, we talk about toxicity, but I know for a fact there's toxic relationships, toxic workplaces. Can you talk about that level of toxicity before we get the cures? Because we must understand the causes. Right.
So chronic stress, chronic stress leads to disease. And it took me a while to really understand that. Chronic stress really does lower the immune system because it releases hormones. It releases cortisol. It depletes your melatonin. So there's this cascading pathway that happens when you're under chronic stress. You know, you're not getting those good endorphins. You're not getting those feel-good endorphins that help your body, support your body. You're getting those negative hormones, your negative things that are coming into your body, making you sad and just depressed and making you think thoughts that are negative. And you're not supported. You're not supported by your spouse or those that are supposed to love you and support you. And so then you're not really encouraged to do those things for yourself that make you well and make you feel better. So, and it really leads to disease. It causes you to deplete your melatonin. It causes you to deplete your vitamin C levels. So then you start not sleeping well. So you're not sleeping well. So those hours between 10 and 6, when you should be getting a restful sleep, are disrupted. That's the hours where your body does some healing. So you're not getting that. And then you're stressed, so that you're going for the sugar, you're going for the carbs to get that feeling of comfort and satisfaction. So then it just really turns your whole world around. And that's how it creates disease in your body. But if you're feeling good about yourself and you're exercising and you're in healthy, loving relationships, that's going to create wellness. And, find a partner that is with you on that wants to exercise, that wants to be outside in nature, wants to eat healthy, and wants to support you in those things that you love to do. And that are those things that are important to you are important to them, and vice versa, so that you really support each other. And that creates health. That creates health.
Well, I think you said that absolutely beautifully. And if I can expand upon that, we have deliberately been steered into a system where we are not human beings, we are human doings.
Yeah.
And that's the point of the education system, to educate you enough to be able to work for a corporation or in a corporate system, but they don't teach you life. They don't teach you relationships. They don't teach you anything of real value, in my humble view. They teach you how to become a good robot. And the higher you go in that, the higher you go up the managerial robot ladder. But before you know, are you familiar with the movie Groundhog Day? Most people.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay, well, it's a little bit dated now, but I love it, because most people, again, with UK's histories, you see they've fallen into Groundhog Day, and they're doing the same over and over. And you know how time just, before you know it, you could be 10, 20 years in a business, and you go, what the hell?
Yeah.
And you've gotten what you believe used to stress. And the fact is, what stress is, I mean, Barbara Wren, who taught me, I was very privileged to move to Devon and work very closely with Barbara Wren, a modern genius, in my view. Any form of stress is dehydrating. And she would say the greatest stress of all is not living in your truth, not being yourself. Well, I have to tell you, many people haven't got a clue that they're not living in their truth until they get diagnosed with a disease, and it stops them, which is why I say it's a blessing in disguise. Natalie, my lovely wife, what it gave her was it stopped her, and she was able, because it stops you. You have to stop. You got to do something now with this thing, and you're able to look at it and go, holy crap, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in this relationship. I don't want to. Unfortunately, the way it's oiled in the subject there we're talking about, before you know it, you're being cut, burned, and poisoned literally to death most of the time. Whereas really, it's an immediate point, and I'm sure you'll agree, of to stop and reflect and to look at everything. Because if you're in stress, and most people are, what's actually happening is your autonomic system cannot be in a healing mode. It's in a fight or flight mode. And you're right, you're absolutely right. As this is adrenal energy, and you become used to it. So you think this is normal.
Right.
And as your adrenal energy drops, which it does, you're reaching for the Coke or the Red Bull, or the or the carbohydrate or whatever it is, and it's this vicious circle. And sugar feeds the environment for cancer and all the other problems that we encounter from sugar. And you're absolutely right. So you're in this up and down, and emotionally you become up and down. Look, if you doubt sugar is linked to emotions and your blood sugar, go spend some time with a pregnant woman and watch her mood change when she's hungry. And B, go to any kid's party in the United States in a state of America is more accurate, but go to any kid's party that are on sugar and watch those kids bouncing off the wall, then end up in fights, then end up in tears, right? Sugar is linked. So if you're in a life and your relationships are up and down, it's linked with your blood sugar again. And you'd agree with that, Valerie?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you see it a lot in children now, how cranky they get because their blood sugars are going up and down, up and down. And so that tells you that they're on the road to metabolic syndrome. You know, they're out of whack. And that's why their blood sugars are going way up and way down. So that's really a sign that our children are even sicker than we were when we were children. They're in even more danger now today.
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, with about 9 minutes left, I want to just encapsulate all that for those who are listening, because we will get, hopefully you'll come back again, because we've got so much to keep sharing, and we're learning all the time, and we want to pass it on. But I spoke to you beforehand that my goals are always to give a philosophy, a simple philosophy that people can then grasp it, and then they can take whatever therapy they like or not. They should be able to plug it in and create a stronger understanding. And hopefully this show, again, has begun to show people that rather than does immunotherapy work, or does intravenous vitamin C work, or does this, they all work as long as we've understood the causes. And the truth is that, and I could think of several cases right now, where the relationships are not working, or they've become unhealthy. And that could be the husband and wife, or whatever it is, or it could be a mother and daughter, whatever it is, right? And the truth is, when you're at this level of disease and your life is potentially at stake, you either have to leave those relationships or you have to evolve those. And I'm glad to say some of the people I'm working with, their relationships are evolving. But some people, you have to seriously consider leaving the relationship, albeit maybe for a time. If your job, as it was with my lovely Natalie, you know, she needed to leave the job. And of course, you know, they were very happy for her to go because she's sick, so they pay her. But if your job's making you sick,
right,
and you haven't acknowledged that, you know, and I can think of several people, they're successful, so they're even less likely to come out of it. But you've really got to stand back and look at every level.
Yeah.
Be absolutely honest. And if you can work with someone like Valerie, or someone like me, or someone who understands this, we're there to help you. And often we have to talk tough love, but we're there to help you see the truth, to see the causes of the toxicity at every level, to see that you've wandered off the path. And it's not what we think is right. We should better show it in your own life. And then we're there to guide you through cleansing, rebuilding the immune system, with all different modalities, depending on your money and your whatever you believe in. You know, we've got lots of different tools. I mean, I want Valerie to talk about, you know, ozonating the blood, because it's fantastic. But we're there to cleanse, help rebuild your blood, and also help you often transition away from anything that has basically been detrimental to you as a human being. So on that subject, and for maybe four minutes or so, Valerie, could you talk about how ozonating is one of those ways of really helping someone boost themselves well?
Oh, yeah. Well, ozone is really one of those therapies that are really good for everybody. And every household really should have an ozone machine. You can ozonate water. You can use it in so many different ways. You can do vaginal ozone, rectal ozone. Like I said, ozonate water, which releases a lot of the chemicals and puts oxygen in the water, so that when you drink that water, you're getting the benefits of the ozone, and of course the toxins being released from the water. Oh my gosh. You can go to a practitioner and get blood or heme ozone, which is very beneficial for, like I said, everyone, but for those who have autoimmune diseases, you're toxic, you have Lyme disease, you have some kind of bugs or viruses in your body that have taken over. Ozone really is just a basic therapy that should be first line for everybody that wants to heal. And like I said, every household should have an ozone machine.
And can you basically, for those who don't know, can you elaborate why bringing more oxygen into the blood and into the body is so beneficial? And you're absolutely right, should be right there at the front line.
Right. Well, ozone is O3. And so when that gets into the body, that releases that extra oxygen molecule, and that's paired up with free radicals because they have a need for an electron. So that pairs up with free radicals and stabilizes them. Free radicals cause a lot of damage going throughout the body, causes a lot of inflammation. So that extra oxygen molecules hooks up with those free radicals and stabilizes them. It also, of course, brings more oxygen into the body, which we all can use because that decreases as we age. And it gets rid of toxins. It actually is toxic to viruses and bacteria. So it cleanses the body of those things, reboots the mitochondria in the body, gets the Krebs cycle going again. And those are the batteries inside every one of your cells that, gets our machinery going, gets us going again, reboots the body, reboots the immune system.
Absolutely. And one of the things, and I hope to get very deeply into ozone this year, is, again, non-toxic, adheres to the first do no harm. It's oxygen, people. And these chronic diseases, where the environment has changed, are normally anaerobic in nature. So oxygen can only, in every level, you can see common sense-wise it's going to help. And for the cynics out there who are going, oh my God, she wants to put oxygen up my bottom or vaginally, these are wonderful vasculated ways of getting ozone into the blood and into the blood system. And ozonating oil is wonderful. If you do oil pulling, wonderful way of pulling the toxins out through the teeth and infections and stuff. If you ozonate the oil, it's even more effective. And I'm very interested in looking at ozonating oil for enemas and looking into that. But, the bottom line of this is, if you can't afford, if you're somewhere going, well, I couldn't afford, an ozone session, an ozonator, get jumping, get rebounding is, anything that increases breath. You've heard it from the yogis, the Ayurvedic medicine, and, the reason they've done breathing exercises is because just by starting to do deep breathing, you're going to be ozonating your body, bringing more oxygen in. And don't underestimate the power of that. This is why these skinny Indian chaps with, cloths that are close to modern day Speedos have walked around for so many years, smelling funny and taking deep breaths and looking so well and living so long. They don't do it for no good reason, my friends. Breathing, deep breathing. And to almost come to a close on that, when I observe people, and you might want to start doing it, Valerie, the amount of women are breathing on their upper chest.
Oh, yeah.
And not their full body because they're tense and underlying anxiety of whatever reasons. It's hugely under breathing going on. So, no, you don't have to smell funny and put a loincloth on and change your name and start saying namaste unless you want to. But you can start making deep breaths. And if you can discover ozonation, it's all out there on YouTube. Contact Valerie. She knows a lot about it. You're going to do yourself tremendous health. Now, Valerie, could you please, for our growing audience, let them know where they can contact you, please?
I have a website, My Wellness Tutor, mywellnesstutor.com, and they can, I do have my phone number on there, and they can click on the little envelope icon and send me a message. I do have my information there at mywellnesstutor.com.
Thank you so much. You can also get Valerie Warwick on Facebook. And if you go to our Facebook pages, the Natural Health Service or Jeremy Ayres, you'll find us there. And you can normally find Valerie somewhere on there. And our websites are themiraclesupplement.com. And well, you'll find us from there, or just contact CNN. But once again, Valerie, it's an absolute joy for me to talk with you. I feel always privileged and to have this time with you. I admire you greatly. You know this. I continue to embarrass you publicly that I admire you for what you're doing. Thank you for being part of the solution. And I hope if there are doctors and nurses and oncologists listening, and we know they are, please start being human beings again and work with us. There's wonderful work to be done. That's what we're here to do. We're in an evolution, a revolution at so many levels, and it's time to start really helping our fellow man and fixing the problems. And Valerie is not rogue nurse. Valerie is angel nurse. So let's start working with her. Thank you to Mel and Biggie at CNN. Thank you to all our listeners and watchers. Thank you for the wonderful comments. Please fire your questions to us and suggest guests. And I hope, Valerie, we can have you on again soon.
Oh, yes. We've got so much more to talk about.
Of course we have. We've got plenty to talk about. Once again, thank you, Valerie. Thank you, CNN. And this is Dr. Jeremy signing off with Naturally Better. Take care, everyone. All the best.